Oh, here we go. We're on.
I think we're right, Lee. Should be coming up. Yep. Okay, I'll see you soon.
Luca's on. Hey, Luca, sorry I didn't get back to you yesterday. I was ringing to say that.
See what happens with shopping centres, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of boarded up shops for a while when we reopen.
Completely agree.
Vinny, everyone, how are you tonight?
All right, well, we're joining our wine tasting.
Luca, how are you?
I'm very good, very good. I got a nice little.
You might have to go back to the picture.
But I wanted to let you know that the pack was on the way for this.
Yes, but I think maybe I didn't join up with the video.
Good. Sorry we missed last week. We were working late.
That's all right. That's all right. You got the pack for this week, though, didn't you?
Yeah, we tried it. Yeah.
So we did our own wine tasting on Friday night. I tried to be funny, but wasn't quite as good.
And I pulled up the website, but he wasn't as funny as you.
I'm putting these on YouTube now. Actually, that's how much of an arsehole I am now.
Oh, that's a good idea.
On YouTube, and I've put up 3 videos. So, but if you ever want to look back on them,
because I told Luca to ask you if you had a recording or something. He's like, oh no, I don't want to bother him.
No. All right. Sam Rose, congratulations.
Thanks, bro.
You probably haven't got your wines yet because Tim, I know, is just doing the last couple of deliveries now.
No, I've got mine.
Oh, you're a VIP, so.
Priorities, bro.
Yeah, we've just dropped in Blackrock and Hampton, which is good. Which means that we've got 2 left to do. So we'll be bang on.
Sounds like you've got some regulars, Vincent, have you?
What's that, Patrick?
You've got some regulars.
Oh, we
have. You know them well.
We do indeed. Yeah, we've got, for some reason, we've got some people who have now listened to over 14 hours of me harp on about wine, Patrick. So I don't know whether I've done something to their brain, but yeah, they keep coming back. I don't know why. So,
Vinny, darling, is there any of the wine tasting notes for this one, or not this one? You're going to talk us through it.
Half of the batch went out without the sheet, but I did send an email.
Did you?
Luca might have got it. It might have gone to your email, Luca. But I am going to put it up on the screen. I am going to put it up on the screen. So Sam Rose, if anybody can see, and Becky are. You guys look very relaxed for people who have got a 2-day-old child in your presence.
Yeah,
My goodness. Have we got a name yet?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
What did you say?
So, Patrick, Sam Rose and Becky have just had a baby girl.
Oh, congratulations. Hey.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
We're tasting a wine today called Clement. That might be a go. Is that a boy's name or is that a girl's name? I don't know. And we got some. Oh, you managed to. So you got your wines on time, Sam, and you got a tasting sheet.
Yeah, man.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Anybody with a tasting sheet? Have they? Has anybody?
They're all the favourites. We know where we stand, Vinny.
I wouldn't. There's actually we've somehow managed to get number 4 and number 5 mixed up as well. So they're numbered correctly and the correct numbers on your bottle. But somehow we managed. Two of us managed to look over it and say, yeah, that looks fine. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6. But sure, it won't be a bottle.
Well, I'll just reorder the bottles and there we are.
Yeah, the bottles are so.
Okay, making our minds work in COVID.
Yeah, it's all part of that. That's exactly what it is.
Darling, we didn't get the tasting sheet, which is fine, but can you sneakily tell me what the first one is?
Sneakily, it's the SSB, the Semillon Sauvignon Blanc.
I thought so.
SSB, and then we'll be going on to Fumé, and
I
then
can't wait for that one.
we're going to go to Chardonnay. Then
Yes.
it's Pinot Noir. We've got our red blend, and then we're going to finish with Cabernet, because we all know, those of us who've been on here before, we're going to make Cabernet sexy again. Patrick, we're on a mission. We're going to get t-shirts made with hashtags. We're going to make Cabernet sexy again.
Oh, right.
Falling off. It's falling off.
Sexy.
Right. Have you not fixed the heat yet, Danny Ryan? No?
No, not yet, mate. Also, got incredibly bad hair, so it causes solves two problems.
I know what's happening here. You're saving the electricity bill because you're saving for a ring.
That's also true.
That's what's happening. He's admitted to that because he's got earphones in and said recipient can't hear.
Correct.
This is the part.
I've got a dog barking at me as well. Want some wine?
Watch out. You should give him some beer. I'm going for a free organic lager to cleanse the palate this evening.
The best way.
This is the bit where I feel like a radio host and I feel like I have to keep talking until the time comes, until 8 o'clock comes. So we've already got somebody in the chat. I haven't seen one. Oh, Kathleen. That is an Aussie Post. I did track. It was out for delivery with Aussie Post today, Kathleen. I don't know where Kathleen was gone. No, Kathleen's just gone for a wander. I love that fire in the cellar door. Is that a permanent feature? Is that always on?
This is on at all times.
Fantastic. Gorgeous.
It's
Beautiful.
Just looking at those makes you feel warm.
So have you guys got people coming into the cellar door again now? Is that you're allowed to open fully?
We live in a different world over here, I think, than most. We are completely operational.
Yeah, okay.
We're very jealous. We wish we could come visit you.
Well, that's what I'm trying to create, this beautiful atmosphere. So when the border is open, you can come visit us and see it for yourself firsthand. The Zoom doesn't necessarily do what you want for what these guys have done to the property. An amazing space.
Yeah, well, you're definitely on our list to come and visit. We're very excited.
Denmark?
We've already sent some visitors down.
Meg.
Wow.
We got some visitors from one of our
It's
previous.
amazing to have people come through.
Yeah. Oh, Denmark is on.
We've still got, so we're still a few minutes away from 8 o'clock. We've got a few people still coming in.
I've got a quick question for you before we start, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Vinny, is that all right?
Yeah.
Your Riesling, I know we're not trying it tonight, but your Riesling, is it the sweeter or more drier style?
Now. Oh, do you want me to answer that or do you want to go?
There you go.
I haven't brought the Riesling here because we saw it last year. We had it in the tasting last season, in the first lockdown. And I was saying to Megs earlier today, I bring it to every one of my private and corporate tastings that I'm doing for a couple of reasons. Because people aren't picking up, they're not picking up Riesling enough in Australia, and it's for that very reason. They don't know what end of the scale it's going to be on. They don't know if it's going to be sweet or dry. And these clever people in Singlefile are one of the few people that have put a barometer on the back of their label, which is something that's done in Europe, in Germany. They use there's a hierarchy of basically dryness that you have to put on the label. It's actually it's regulation. You've got to put it on the label in Germany. Over here, you don't have it. So the clever clogs in the Great Southern have put it on, so you can see that it's right up on the dry scale. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't pick up Riesling in Australia. They don't know what end of the scale is going to be. People are too afraid of picking up the shit.
I completely agree. It can either be really sweet or really dry, or somewhere in the middle. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Have you got it at the pub?
We have it in there, yeah, we do. We got through. We got through it. Christmas.
How much are you selling it for, Vinny?
Good question. So close your ears, Megs, and
It's probably about 20. It's probably about 25 around that price point.
yeah, we do a dozen around the 20 or 22, I think. Because
Okay, we might grab some of that. Give it a go.
yeah, it's and it is. I mean,
I think it's something to that dry spectrum that Vinny speaks about is there's a range. So the one that he stocks has got this really beautiful texture to it, which creates a real softness about the wine. Whereas you can get those really dry and acidic ones that can be quite abrasive to people who aren't.
Amazing. Thanks, Megs.
there you go. Yeah, I think Riesling is definitely it's definitely underrated and underutilized.
Oh, we love it.
It's because of that very reason. Okay, a couple of questions straight in. Casey wants to know: quick question? Are we returning the old bottles? If you can return the bottles, we are going to put them to use. We're not going to be using them in these sessions because we feel that as much as we might try and sterilize them, we just don't want to. We don't want anything going around in circles, if you know what I mean. We've got a plan to use them up on our roof to put seedlings in. We've got a rooftop in the pub that we can grow some herbs in for when we open them. We'll use them in our cocktails and use them in our pizzas. So we are going to reuse them. So do return them if you can. But we're not going to use them in these sessions because we don't want to be passing around little bits of nasties. Phil, do we have a tasting sheet? I did email, so half of the tasting sheets didn't go out today. The lads were under a lot of pressure this morning. This is the biggest session that we've done. We had 82 packs go out today, so a little bit of pressure this morning. Picking and packing, we missed a few of the sheets. I did email Phil. I did email the tasting sheet out. If you want it, I can try and get an email to you again. I might see if I can get someone here to email it to you again. I am going to show it on the screen.
Sorry, Vinny. Quick question. If we want to follow online, I've just put up the Singlefile website. But they've got a few different, like our wines, have got a few different collections. What collection should we look at if we can follow online?
We're two wines. Actually, no, just one wine from the Great Southern and the rest from the Single Vineyard. Because that's how good to you guys I am. I've got you guys drinking shit. All right, so we've got.
Oh, we love you.
The SSB from the SSB is from the Great Southern Collection, and the rest of them are from the Single Vineyard, and they're awesome. We're about to drink wine. All right, we've got a few in. Kathleen, I did just get your message. Yeah. Right, 82. Well, I just have to see over now because there's a bit of background noise. So let me do everybody, and I'm going to go through noise at the start of the. We call it a show. Are we there yet? Is it a show? We're not a show. We're not a show. We're a thing. We're a lesson. I don't know what we are. When we start talking about shows and stuff like that, yeah, Danny Ryan says, mute people. I'm about to mute. Just got to get to, there you go. You're all on mute now. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't jump in, all right? If you need to say something, you feel you need to say something, jump in. Because it can be pretty lonely at this side of the camera, and I do like the odd little bit of jump in. What I'll do is it's 8:03. Yeah, we've still got a couple of people coming in. Hello to all the newbies. How's it going? I can see Claire and Mick. Thankfully, we got there just in time. Dave McCann is a name I haven't seen before. Hey, Holly, how's it going? Lauren's iPhone. Gail, how's it going? I got your message, Gail. I will get back. My apologies. Mike McLean's in for another time. Christine, hope you got your wines. Nicole's back. Cool, fantastic. How's it going? Sally and Peter, how are things? Sonia, Matt. Matt's back from work. Sonia, Matt. Hey, Jules. Benita, we found your address in the end. Hey, Kyle and Scott again. Dion, how's it going? You got your tasting sheet. Phil and Olivia, did you get the tasting sheet? Did you get it? No, check your emails, Liv. I emailed it, so just have a look and see. Laura, how's it going? All right, we got a few new faces, so there's a couple of things we need to do to initiate you all. Those who have been here before know exactly what we're going to do. Orla Kennedy has her hands full right there. So that's all right. You'll need wine. which is good. Okay, cool. So Sam Scanlon, Sam, in the text, or even if you want to jump on, can you let me know if Pat is with you? Because by the beauty of social media, I gather that it might be a particular day of the year for Pat, and if it is, you know the rules, and the rules are we're going to sing happy birthdays. Is this the Chardonnay you sold us the other week, Luca? I don't know, Luca. If no, it's not. The Chardonnay that I showed you was from the Great Southern. This is a step up. This is a single vineyard. Hey, Jess, Scanlon, how's it going? How are you? All right, so we've still got a couple of people coming in. Elle's beside me here. I've got my director. The O'Briens are in Port Melbourne. How's it going? How are you guys? Now, we're jumping over to the other side of the country today. So we're in episode 3 of our Cellar Door series. My God. Using words like episode just makes me feel like an absolute arse. But anyway, that's where we are. We're jumping around the country a bit, but we're sticking to our plan, and that is to support family-run, real people behind real wines. Okay, that's what we're doing. We we want to get to know what these people are about. We want to get to know what makes them tick. We want to know what the winery dog is called. We want to know why they decided to buy a farm in the first place. And but that's something that we've realized, having spoken to so many producers at this stage, you know, it always comes back to, you know, there's that many things that they have to battle against every year, every vintage to get this little bit of liquid into the bottle. And we've spoken about how hard it is and how it is farming. And I know that these guys behind Singlefile, who are going to be talking to Megs in the Cellar Door, and we're going to be talking to the guys at home as well. We're going to figure out what made the leap. I know that there was previous careers behind the guys behind here, and there was some leap of faith that they took, and we'll figure out why. And if it's paid off, I guess. Well, when you drink the wines, you'll pretty much you'll decide for yourself. So it's good timing with these wines. By the way, newbies. Anybody, and when I say newbies, anybody who's in for the first time, very, very simple and strict rule that we carry in this session. Do not wait for me to tell you to drink. I'm Irish. I talk a lot. I'm talking about a subject that I love. I've been working with wine for 20 years. I can go and this happened, was it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? We were 52 minutes in before I actually told people to take a sip of wine, okay? Do not wait for me. Good on you. I can see Heather Campbell is getting the right idea. Now, keep your glass where it is there, partner of Heather. What I also do at this stage, what I'm asking people to do at this stage is get a glug. Now, the first wine that we're going to try, and I will put up the lineup in a second, the first line that we're going to try is the SSB, the Semillon Sauvignon Blanc. So get a good glug of that into your glass if you can. It's this one here. I'll put the wines up in a sec. And what I want you to do, particularly those who are new, and this, the guys who've been here before know what we're about to do here and why we're about to do it. This is a scientifically proven way of me finding out how far up the wanker scale you are, okay? I want to see between 0 and wine wanker where you're at, okay, where you're hovering. And there's 2 ways I'm going to do it. So I just want you to put a bit of wine into your glass, hold it up to the camera, and let me see your swirl. So I'm going to look at 2 things here. I'm looking at the wrist action, and I'm looking at the glass itself. Okay, Claire and Mick, you've gone stemless. It's, you're making a statement straight off the bat, but the swirl is not too bad. Holly, not a bad swirl. Luke and Zanin, obviously, we know how far up they are. Heather, can I see that one again? Heather Campbell, can I just have a look at that again? A little bit of work to be done there, but we're getting there. We're sort of, yeah. Now, what I'll do now, Patrick, yeah. Patrick's going the old school way and getting it straight up to his mouth. He's not giving it much of a swirl at all, actually. Julia, as always, there's a nice little wanker swirl there. Lauren, where's the double this week, Lauren? I was looking forward to that. Okay, so we've got varying different parts. I can see now, Mark Dobson, like I said, like, definitely been to a Cellar Door before. Definitely been to a wine. Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's all in the swirl. You can see it straight away. All right, cool. So it's amazing to see the amount of stemness coming out as well. Okay, the other thing that we want to, I want to just build on from last week a little bit. I want to know how many people actually like coriander. Don't tell me now. At some point during the comments, something came up last week about the correlation between people who do and don't like coriander, whether or not they can stack a dishwasher, and then whether or not they're left-handed, all right? We're going to try and get those who weren't here last week. We identified that half the population of the world, 50% of those people alive can stack dishwashers and 50% can't. There are German engineers turning in their graves at the sight of some of the dishwasher stacking that goes on these days. Their life's work in vain. Their life's work in vain. We want to try and correlate to see if it's the same people who don't like coriander and if it's the same people who are left-handed as well. Hit me up in the comments if you can on that. Yes to coriander, no to dishwasher. See? There you go. See? There's no science behind it. All right. Megs, I'm going to introduce you to Megs. Megan Belcher is the Cellar Door manager over in Singlefile, over in Western Australia. Where when you think of Western Australia, you know, we always think of Margaret River. It just takes the gong every time. It's what people think of when they think of Western Australia. But there's so much more to WA than just Margaret River. And we're going to see a region here that's so big and so diverse that we've actually got, and we promised that we wouldn't make this a PowerPoint presentation thing, but we're making it a PowerPoint presentation thing. All right, because we want you guys to learn a bit as well. It's so diverse. It's such a huge area, Great Southern, that there's actually 5 different subregions within one region. And within those subregions, obviously, they've all got different soil types. So you guys haven't got the bottles, but when I put up the image, you'll see, and we'll talk about quite a few of these wines are from single vineyard sites, and they've got various different attributes, and that comes from different microclimates and different soil types in those subregions. These guys now, Jess and Luca mentioned earlier that they were on the website and they could see that there was different collections on the Singlefile site. You've got 3 different Cabernets, 4 different Chardonnays, 3 different Rieslings, but they're all coming from different parts of Great Southern. And we'll see on the map here how far away they are, how diverse they are, and how that, you know, we could probably do a full tasting with Cabernet from Great Southern and just see how it differs from different sites. So that's something that Megs is going to talk about. We will show you a bit more about the soil type. Megs and I did a private tasting for a crew over. They did a Mother's Day crew in WA. They had half their family here, half their family in WA. They did a Mother's Day tasting, and Megs came in to help out with that. And I won't tell you some of the. It was 9 o'clock on Mother's Day, and most people had a skinful before we got on. And some of the comparisons to I think, was it the Riesling that we were tasting, and the comparisons that we had come out, we might tell you later if we've had too much booze. But yeah, it was quite interesting. So anyway, these sessions, before I hand you on to Meg, these sessions are all about learning. We're having a bit of fun. We're going to find out about coriander as well. But ask loads of questions if you can. The more questions you ask, the more you get from this. Find out, you know, as much as you can. Pretend you're in. The idea of this particular series is to, you know, make us feel like we're in the cellar door. And obviously, we're looking at a beautiful fire there. Ask the questions you'd ask in the cellar door. And there's no questions too silly or that in these sessions. We are here to learn. If you ask me a question and I don't know it, I'll make up a really convincing answer, and I'll mute the people who I think will know it, so they won't be able to contradict me. So I'll be very convincing, and by the time you guys go to check the facts, you know, I'll be gone by then. All right, but do ask those questions. Megs, we're going to try and have a wine now. We're 13 minutes into a wine session and we haven't tasted the fucking wine yet. So I'm going to ask you to maybe go through the SSB and then give us some background on the family, on the winery, and let's take it from there. All right, so the SSB work first. And I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's kind of like being at a silent disco, and the only thing I can hear is myself and Vinny. So you guys have the 2018 Sauvignon Blanc. The other thing that Vinny's treated you guys to is a few older wines as well. We're on new vintage over here in WA, so you guys have a little bit of Vinny, we can see your to-do list.
Sorry, that's my to-do list. I'm just going to try and get your wine map up. Hang on. Sorry.
Buy a headband for your out of control hair.
Now you said that I could brand this as if it was my own, so I did. I've done none of the work for this map, but makes it I could brand it.
That's a lie. Okay, so you guys have the Sauvignon Blanc in your glass. This wine is classic. I mean, we know them through Australia. You guys actually, I assume everyone's in Melbourne. when we get a lot of Melbourne people come in to, or just over East people, we say, oh, would you like to try the SSB? Obviously, I'm not from Australia, but, and you just get this blank face. And I'm not sure how many of you are actually familiar, but the SSB is the Sauvignon Blanc blend, which is what you have in your glass, but somehow West Australia has abbreviated it right down. And it's a beautiful blend of Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. Now, there is a little bit more Semillon in this. So it's a really, I think because the cool climate we deal with down here, we get really light expressions of our whites and our reds, but this is really that. You've got a little bit of gooseberry, a little bit of texture, but it's got a bit of a grassiness to it as well. So it's not what we know Sauv Blancs to kind of stereotypically be. It's got normally a lot of passion fruit. There is tropical elements to it, but it's a much grassier style. So I really encourage you to get your nose in there, smell it, give it a swirl. But it's just a really clean style of, a Sauvignon Blanc. The next one we'll try complicates the Sauv Blanc variety a little bit in a good way. But this just keeps it nice and clean. Now, Vinny did say that this wine is the only wine that you guys are having that comes from a range of our vineyards, or not our vineyards, but the vineyards that we work with. And we do that because whilst we can grow everything on this vineyard where I'm here, one, we don't have a very big property, but two, the varieties just thrive. So the map that's on your screen gives a really good indication of how far away we are from some of the vineyards that we work with. So the Great Southern for WA is the largest region in the country. The sub-regions, or sorry, not the country, the state. The sub-regions and the differences really make a difference as to where we source that fruit. So as we go through the wines tonight, they're not all going to come from our Denmark estate because our Chardonnay thrives here, and so we will get to try an absolute banging vintage of that. But yeah, this is just a really classic West Australian blend that kind of got introduced as Chardonnay. Saw a trend, I think, in the 90s where it was getting overdone and people just wanted fresh and easy drinking on the hot days that we get over here. Not that hot right now, more of a Chardonnay day.
I don't think we'd be able to do a Western Australia tasting and have 3 whites in and not have an SSB. It's sort of become synonymous with the region. Is that because of the growing factors? Is it because Semillon excels down there? This is actually you would ordinarily see the Sauvignon Blanc, meaning that the dominant grape variety there would be Sauvignon Blanc, but this is about 50, 55 or 60% Semillon, isn't it?
This one's 49. It's 51 to 49 actually.
Okay.
18 each. So it's really close. We have actually asked that question because straight Semillons can be really popular. They are a bit of a harder sell, but we don't get the hot enough climate anywhere in the region to really produce what we need of it. Places like Margs do, and obviously places like the Hunter Valley do. Of course we could make them, but I guess one of the things that Singlefile really tries to represent and stand for is producing the best quality wine for the region that we're in, rather than trying to produce a variety just because it produces down here. So, this blend typically can fluctuate in the ratios just depending on what's looking really great that year. But for us, this vintage, like the vintage we're on here at the moment, has got way more Semillon in it, and that just comes down to the quality of the fruit and the characteristics that the winemakers are seeing as they're starting to taste things in tanks.
That's something that we touched on last week as well. I think when we were talking about sort of small batch wines, that when you're looking at wines of this caliber and wines that are made by real people, there will be vintage variation. You will be, we might look at this particular wine in 2 years' time, and it might be Sauvignon Blanc. There might be 15% Semillon because that's what it needs. Whereas the commercially made, larger brands that want to make a wine taste the same every single year, that you won't see any vintage variation. So that's one of the wanker terms that we've had come up quite a bit is vintage variation, and we want that. We want to be able to go back and see a wine and see how it looks different year on year. So so you mentioned Margs there. You sort of have to mention it. But do you have people coming down to you that have never been down to the region? They sort of go from Perth, they get down as far as Perth or as Margaret River, and they do their thing there and head back up again. Are you finding now that you're getting discovered a bit more as a region?
Yeah. So for anyone anyone's looking at that map, so we're actually about 350 kilometers, and that's Franklin River from Margaret River. So we get a lot of people who will come down here for the day from Margaret River, not realizing that we're actually still a 4-hour drive from Margs, because you've got to come inland. It's not down freeway. You're coming down not dirt roads, but back roads that are very windy and mountainous and around the trees. And so it can be, we're a lot further away, but I constantly say this, and I'm still saying it now, even with only WA travelers right now in WA, there's the amount of people that come through our doors that have never been here. It makes it a really exciting place to be, because not just the wines that we're making, but the quality coming from the Great Southern is incredible. And being that they're cooler climate, we are finding, and having just been in Margs last week, where there's definitely still a place in many people's lives for those really big wines, red or white. But what we're finding is people are a little bit more into drinking now, and maybe even more so now. And that cooler climate that we get down here is a little bit more gentle on the wines that we produce, and so they are a little bit more ready for today.
That's definitely something that we have found, and we've seen in these sessions as well, is that the palate's coming more. It is coming down towards that kind of lighter style, cooler climate style. Even with the reds, people, there is still, we are still trying to make Cabernet sexy again, but there's definitely been a sort of surge back towards the lighter styles. Can everyone see my screen that I'm sharing? Can everyone see the lineup of wines? Can you see the tasting sheet?
Yeah.
See that? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's the way we're tasting now. Obviously, your bottles will be numbered. The next wine is the Fume. There's a bit of a mix-up on the tasting sheet between 4 and 5, but we are going to taste number 4 first, and then number 5 and 6. So here's this is the packaging, which you can see here. It's a shame you don't have the bottles, because I often take the piss. I don't. It's not that I don't take the piss. I tell people in these sessions not to bother reading the back of the wine label, because it's usually full of marketing crap that marketeers have copied and pasted from somebody else, and they've just put it on their own label. So fortunately for you guys haven't put any of that on, and what you guys put on the back is just a referral to your website, which is good, because that's where the real information is. So nice work on that one. And then you've obviously got the usuals on the front as well. So nice work on the back label, because we tend to scrutinize the marketing fed ones, which we see a lot.
We try to keep it clean. We keep it clean. We can't be, ostracized.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. And like I said, Claire, no, I'm not bagging marketeers. I'm bagging wine marketeers, Claire. Marketeers that, don't put any effort into what goes on the back of the wine list. I'm a marketeer myself. I never back. All right, we're getting some comments in on the coriander, which is good, which is cool. All right, we're going to go on to the Fume Blanc. Now, any questions on the SSB before we start?
Is someone reading the comments?
Vinny, sorry, number 2 and 3 has rubbed off the caps. Assuming the Fume Blanc is a light, bright, and the Chardonnay is a richer color. Fantastic, Nathan. Yes, it is. So the next one, there will be a little bit of a color difference on this one, but yeah, the larger, richer, darker color is definitely the Chardonnay. Kathleen, your wines went out with Aussie Post, so I don't know if Aussie Post are still delivering. I'm not too sure, but I'll have to have a check for you offline on that, if that's okay. I'm with you, Claire. Don't mock marketeers, said Sean and Tammy. No, we love them. I just don't trust them when it comes to what's on the back of the wine label. I've opened a can of worms there. I know I have. Holy shit. All right, good point that Nathan made there. When we're looking at, we haven't actually gone through our sort of tasting basics, which we can. You've all heard it before, I'm sure, but those who are new may not have. When I go into the Wanker Swirl, there is lots of reasons why we do swirl our glass. We want to look at the wine, obviously. We want to make sure that we're able to see it properly, which Nathan made a good point there. So we want to make sure we're in a very nice light environment. We're not in the dark. Look, I saw someone in the dark a minute ago who won't be able to see their wines. Who was that? I can't remember who it was, but there was someone. There you go. It was Holly. Holly, turn on a light. You won't be able to see your wines. All right, so we want to be able to look. The first thing we do when we're tasting wine, and this is probably what you go through in the cellar door makes. First thing you want to do is have a look at it and have a look at how it appears. And you can tell a lot by a wine just by having a look on it. Now, one of the easiest things to do when you're in a real wine tasting, put a piece of paper behind your wine. So use your tasting sheet, those that were lucky enough to get it. Angle your wine down the glass like this and have a look through your wine, okay? Then you want to be looking at a couple of things. You want to look at the color, That gives you an indication of how heavy it's going to be, how old it might be, if it's off, if it's oxidized. Or, yeah, these guys got, Dave McCann got his tasting sheet, he's happy as Larry. Those who got it, you should frame it, they're collector's items today. You also want to look at the clarity of the wine. So pop your fingers behind it and have a look. Ask yourself, can you see right through it? And again, when it comes to reds in particular, you can tell the intensity and the weight of the wine just by looking at it. And before we even put it to our nose, we can tell if it's light in style, heavy, old, new, or even off as well. Next thing we do, we do our wanker swirl, get it up to our nose. About 3 people last week put their nose too far in and they got wet. Don't go that far, but do get it in as far as you can and give it a good sniff. Right, and then we go into our, I'll take you through the tasting on the palate then after that. But the wanker swirl is important. What it does is it opens up the aromas and it gets them up into your nose so you can, when you're tasting wine, the first part of tasting is actually smelling it. Getting the aroma into your nose will actually start the process of you tasting that wine. So it is quite an important part. Right, we're going to go on to Fumé Blanc. Now, this is the second time we have included Sauvignon Blanc in these tastings, all right? It took us 14 weeks to get the first one in, and we only brought it in because it tasted like Chardonnay, because it was barrel aged and barrel fermented and natural yeast. And the second reason that the second time we have it in now is because it's not called Sauvignon Blanc, it's called something else. And it's made in a way that, might have it a little bit off the regular Sauvignon Blanc taste profile and into more, textured and more sort of interesting taste profiles. So, Fumé Blanc, do you want to tell us why it's called Fumé, Megs, and take us through a taste of it? This is wine number 2, Fumé Blanc.
So there's there's a few, there's an American version. The Fumé Blanc, Fumé means smoked, and you can get a really beautiful, spicy and subtle smokiness from this wine. The other day I was doing a tasting and all my wines felt smoky because the fire, the wet wood, I didn't know what was going on. But the Fumé Blanc itself should really add a beautiful kind of subtle, smoky or wooden characteristic. But it's really about that spiciness and the green tea. And Vinny, you can probably give a better description on, or the story behind the Fumé Blanc. It originates in the Loire Valley from Puy-Fumé. But I know that there's also an American story where the guy had a lot of Sauvignon Blanc and thought, what am I going to do with this? And that's where he started to put it into oak to create that same style from the Loire Valley.
Yeah, back to marketeers and how they like to sell wine. I'm going to get into it tonight. Essentially what happened was...
marketing.
Yeah, in the US, this has happened across a couple of industries. This happened with Irish whiskey as well, when they changed the spelling of Irish whiskey. But we'll get on to that in a while. Basically, Sauvignon Blanc had been pigeonholed in the US into a very sweet style of wine. This is kind of in the 1960s. So a lot of the wine being made from Sauvignon Blanc was being made as dessert wine, sticky sweet wine. And a gentleman by the name of Robert Mondavi, who runs one of the biggest wine producing kind of engines in California, decided that, right, if I'm going to try and market Sauvignon Blanc as it should be, as a still wine, as an aromatic wine, like, a tropical aromatic wine that we know today, I'm going to have to change people's perception. And he didn't want to go down the 50-year route of going, it doesn't have to be sweet, it can be still. So he changed the name of it. And he took the Fumé, just as being, because he was going to put it in oak and things like that, and added that to it. And the Fumé came from Puy-Fumé in France. He obviously kept the Sauvignon Blanc as well. So he basically made up a term to be able to market Sauvignon Blanc to a market that was used to drinking it as a really sticky sweet wine. And that's where it stuck. And I think you guys might give us some more indication. Pam or Patrick might tell us why you decided to use it. Was it because of the style of salve that you were using? Was it because there's so many salves on the market? Was it what was the reason you guys put it on the label?
Well, there's a few reasons behind. As we'll get to some of the reds while we have names for the wines, and of course there is definitely a marketing side behind it, but we wanted to make that Fumé style, and we've actually tried these wines as they get older, and we're amazed with how on par they are to the original style that comes from France. So for those of you who maybe don't know, so somewhere like Margaret River is really renowned because they're very on par with places like Bordeaux, or that's who they resonate with and a lot of times. Down here, we can see a lot more of those cooler climates of France, and we really can produce a great Fumé Blanc. And because Singlefile is about creating quality wines, you know, just to create an SSB, the SSB is the marketing side of it, it's the commercial side of it, I guess. And then the Fumé Blanc is for those serious wine drinkers who know that we create stuff for everyone for every day, but we also create these beautiful other varieties that tick a box for people who are interested in something a little bit more complicated. So the Fumé Blanc, for us, if you smell it and taste it, there's a beautiful straw characteristic to it, and I find a really pronounced kind of green pea, which is makes it really great with food, or for anyone who's really into Chardonnay. You know, a lot of our Chardonnay drinkers will say no, but then they taste it, and because of the level of complexity to it, the texture that will also develop over time, we get a lot of people who really do resonate with this wine, and we've made it in a few different labels, and we play with it every year depending on the quality of the fruit that we get, or you know, depending on how the vintage goes. But really great with seafood and poultry dishes because of that spice that comes with it, and the green pea characteristic as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things there that would kind of lead Chardonnay drinkers to this. You know, the fact that it's actually seen some barrel fermentation, it goes into new French barriques, isn't that right?
Yeah.
That largely in terms of Sauvignon Blanc production, that would rarely happen. Like, and we spoke about this 2 weeks ago when we had our other Sauvignon Blanc. In the larger produced Savs, they go into steel tank in and out pretty quickly, whereas this has actually got texture. So if you're going to put this up against, say, a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that's all about, you know, upfront fruit, tropical fruits, this has got more restraint. It's got more minerality. And this is actually one of our first single vineyard wines that we're tasting tonight as well. Meaning that what these guys are trying to do is basically get the very essence of what's in the vineyard into the bottle. So by not blending from different sites, and if we want to recap a bit, single vineyard wines basically mean that exactly that. The grapes for this wine have come from one site, one particular vineyard. More often than not, wines are a blend, and even up and down the price points, even up to the more premium wines, will blend wines from different sites to get a certain profile. And even though it might all be Shiraz, for example, or all be Chardonnay, the different pockets, the different sites they come from will add different things to the wine. And when the winemaker blends them together, they get a particular style. So however, these wines that we're tasting now, all these wines are single vineyard sites. So like we said earlier, they will taste different year on year because those sites will have got different levels of rain, different heat, different sunshine. You know, there might have been a swarm of bees come through or something, you know, all those elements that can stuff up a vintage for a winemaker. So yeah, you're getting the very essence of what's in the vineyard. I think this kind of sits right in the middle as a wine. It'll suit the Sauvignon Blanc and the Pinot Gris drinker, and also suit a Chardonnay drinker as well, because it has that texture. So it has that bit of acid. It's got texture as well.
And the Riesling drinkers, the dry Riesling drinkers as well. But Vinny, it's important to note, I think your tasting notes say that this wine comes from Pemby, which is technically just outside the Great Southern, or Pemberton. But this vintage in particular, for that exact reason that you were just talking about, we found that the better quality fruit came from Mount Barker in 19, whereas the vintages to either side of it were from Pemberton, but for us, Mount Barker, which is about 40 minutes from where we are, just produced a better version of the style that we were hoping to make for this wine.
Can I just ask a question? Can you guys, we're on wine number 2, yeah? Yeah, at the moment. You guys must put a serious amount of kilometers on the car during vintage. You know, I mean, if you guys go and checking these sites, have you got winemakers kind of in these sites that are checking? Have you got growers checking for you, or have you got winemakers driving thousands of kilometers during vintage?
Yeah, so okay, so one of the great benefits to being, as you said before, in the Great Southern and having these pockets of different sub-regions like Denmark, Albany, Mount Barker, Franklin River, and the Krongrops is that they almost all have their hero varieties for what they'll produce really well. Kobe, our winemaker, and Patrick are both on the road extensively quite a bit as we come into those really heavily those times where we need to be checking quality of fruit. However, we do have, as well as Kobe, being that he's a local, he's born and raised down here, they have these long-term relationships with the growers. So we don't actually manage those vineyards, so to speak. And a lot of people work like this down here because it means that you're not forced to just grow what you have on your site. It would also be an extremely, again, for commercial side of things, extremely expensive way to make wine. The price points would not be as friendly. So, you know, we have these relationships, and, you know, their job is to produce a great quality fruit. Our job is to then commit to purchasing it. But if it doesn't produce in the quality that we're looking for, then we have that option to, you know, opt out in a way. But I mean, the fruit's never not there. Sometimes it's just about quantity over quality, depending on what's going on in the vintage.
And picking a different site as well. I guess you have that ability to pick the better site. Any questions on the Fumé Blanc? Did anybody know? If anybody was asked in a trivia question, Holly, you got the light on, good stuff. You'll be able to see the Chardonnay in this beautiful golden hue coming off the Chardonnay. Would anybody have got in a trivia? Anybody have guessed that Fumé Blanc was Sauvignon Blanc wrapped up in a different name? No, there you go. You learned something new. Oh well, maybe Sally and Peter would have. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. You learn something new every day. Yeah, Irish whiskey did the very same thing. When Irish whiskey went through a really dark period, and, you know, went from 1,000 distilleries down to 3, and the Scots were kind of running away with it, they needed to try and differentiate themselves. And it was at that point when John Jameson put the E in Irish whiskey. So you'll notice next time you're reading, well, if you ever get to read a fucking bar list again, or a whiskey list again in a bar, next time you're reading it, have a look, and the Irish whiskey is spelled different to Scotch and Japanese. Now some other countries are starting to do it as well, but there you go. Same thing. It was just to try and differentiate themselves and remarket themselves when they were going through a tough time. Speaking of Irish whiskey, great segue, Vinny. I have an Irish whiskey tasting booked. It's in the calendar, 6th of September. It's Father's Day. It's at 5 o'clock. The first session is almost sold out. I reckon I'll be doing 2 sessions. I'm going to be locked. So yeah, if anybody wants to hook on, it's on the website. Irish whiskey tasting on the 6th of September. Chardonnay drinkers, raise your glass. Who would normally reach for a Chardonnay? Yes, there's a few of you around. Come out. Yes. 5 years ago, had we asked that question, or even 7 years ago, I reckon we would have had a lot less hands go up. Chardonnay, like we talk about wine going in and out of fashion all the time. Chardonnay went out of fashion for sure. It's back on track, and when you got wines like this coming out, properly produced wines that got everybody onto the Chardonnay train in the first place, then you can see why people are coming out. People are spending a bit more on Chardonnay, and I think people are afraid if they don't spend a bit more, they will get that overworked, overly oaked crap that ruined it for everybody that Kath and Kim used to love. But this is awesome. When I think about Western Australia, I think about a couple of things that make me think about wine. I think about SSB, think about Cab Merlot, and Chardonnay. You can't go anywhere to any cellar door and not taste at least 2, if not 3 Chardonnays that they're making. And this is the older style. It's got some oak. I presume it's got some new oak. I haven't read the tasting notes, but for me, I think it's got some new oak in there. But it's used properly. This is the whole thing about making Chardonnay. You have to balance. Wine's about balance. You don't balance. If there's no balance there, then it's just all over the shop. If you put oak in and you haven't got enough fruit, this is you just don't get something like this. This is awesome. This is my favorite. This is time for my real wanker glass to come out. Okay, this is what I'm going to be tasting with the Burgundy glass. Chardonnay, as we know, has a home in Burgundy. We always talk about where the grape variety kind of has its home in Europe. So Burgundy, much like Pinot Noir being the red champion of the region, most of the white wines grown in Burgundy, if not 99%, Danny might give me a number there, will be Chardonnay, okay? And I think this is probably a bit of you don't want to say it's a European style, but it's definitely not a big, heavy Australian style. It's a very well-balanced style of wine that I think you could find similar styles in Europe. Now, look at the colour of that. Have a look and put your wine up against your white background and have a look at this. Automatically, you can see a different colour in this to the first two. This has got that real golden hue. You're definitely, and that gives you an indication of a couple of things straight away. It gives you an indication that there's oak being used in this and possibly new oak. And it's got a little bit of age as well. It's a couple of years old at this stage. But yeah, you can definitely see you're dealing with Chardonnay. pop your nose in and it just bounces up. Do you want to take us through this one, Megs, and take us through the sort of new
Yeah,
one?
I think also it's probably a good opportunity because this comes, if there's daylight, I can turn the camera around. But this wine comes from the vineyard that I'm sitting on here. This is the wine that they've either grafted or replanted on this vineyard. Whilst we have other wines that people know us for, this is one of the 3 reasons why I applied for a job at this place. It is an absolute sensational Chardonnay. So I think it's really worth talking about the brand and the people behind it at this point, because Phil and Viv, who live on the property, they are a big reason. So the only vineyard that the owners get to is this one, and they live 20 yards from the actual wines, and they are meticulous about being out here. So Phil and Viv originally come from a geology background. They had a mining company in the city, a consulting company, but they're geologists by trade. Vinny, it could be a good time to throw that soil profile up if you've got it handy. And they are so hands-on with this vineyard, and it's a huge testament to why this Chardonnay, year in and year out, is just an absolute sensational drop. They run the company with their daughter and son-in-law, Patrick and Pam, who live in Perth, who come from different backgrounds as well, but they all believe in producing really great quality wine, and that's why we've relatively grafted this entire vineyard or replanted Chardonnay, as we look to try to plant more as well, to ensure that we can always produce this wine. So geology background, obviously this is Phil and Viv's masterpiece, this soil display that's on your screen right now that we have down in our private tasting room. On the far left is Denmark, and that's a very condensed version of what we deal with on this property. That top level is really rich Kerry loam soil. So the Kerry trees that we have around here offer a really beautiful tannin and nutrients to the soil. And then there's a nice old, dairy history to the area as well, being that we're basically in the middle of nowhere. So we get this really nutrient dense Kerry loam soil, which is a really great aspect from Chardonnay. We can get up to 1.5 meters of it on this vineyard. And it really does give us the right. Chardonnay is a quick ripening variety, and so we need, because we can be so cold down here, we need that to happen within a certain amount of time, and that soil helps that Chardonnay along to ripen within the short season that we have down here, and really thrive. As you go through, you've got a little bit of red gravel or laterite, as they say in the geology world, and as you go down the layers, you get older and older, so you've got a bit of clay there, so it's really damp, wet form. It is much more condensed, and it keeps those vines that don't need a lot of water, but it keeps them, hydrated. And then you've got some gravel or some granite rock way down the bottom. We do see granite protruding through parts of the soil, but that Kerry loam and that clay are huge elements to the Chardonnay that you've got in your glass. Like Vinny said, this does see a little bit of new oak. And I don't know, Vinny, if you want to jump into a little bit of your favorite wine wank about malolactic fermentation and lees stirring, because those 2 practices with this wine are, in my opinion, where we get some of the really distinct characteristics. The acid is definitely from that soil and the area down here, but the texture and the butteriness and the nuttiness that make this wine, for any Chardonnay drinkers, it probably puts a smile on your face. There's like a nostalgic aspect of Chardonnay that, when Chardonnay clicked for you once upon a time, when you smell it, you just know that you're going to love it. So I don't know, I'm happy to go through that video, or if you want to jump in and chat about those processes. It is a bit wanky, but I think it's really key to understand why some Chardonnays you may or may not like, because some that see processes overdone can be really, really not very tasty, and some that hopefully see the right balance can just hit the mark.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've talked about malolactic fermentation before and these things, and we are here to learn as many wanker terms as we can. And if we all have a little black book of wanker terms by the end of this, we're not doing our job. We're here to get further up the scale. But it's a term that sounds mad, but all it is it's a secondary fermentation process that can happen naturally or can be started, but it can also be stopped very easily. By adding a little bit of sulfur can stop it very easily. So. How much is the Chardonnay? Chardonnay is $35, but I'm just getting my executive producer here to read some of the comments from me while I'm coming. Chardonnay is $35 normally, 10% off for a 6-pack and 15% off for a 12-pack. Not that we're here to sell wine, we're here to learn, all right? We're here to learn.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you just say retail this Chardonnay for $35 a bottle?
I think so. Maybe I got it wrong. Why?
No, so I think it's your great Southern Chardonnay that you'd retail, which I was going to mention about being a really price approachable banging Chardonnay. This would retail about 60, or you're doing a really good job for.
Yeah, 60, 10% off for 6. Sorry. What do I know? I don't know. Sam's off on annual leave. Julesy, tell us what it's worth. Anyway, those of you who are lucky enough to get a tasting pack, your QR code is down the bottom. Hit in there if you want to get to the wines and pick them up. I've got a mixed 6-pack there where I have kind of brought the mixed 6-pack down considerably. So have a look at that if you can. Malolactic fermentation, it's a secondary fermentation process that basically, in short, adds texture. Okay, it produces lactic acid that adds texture to a wine, and it can be stopped pretty easily. So winemakers can let it go for longer or shorter depending on how much texture they want in wine. And what Meg's touched on there is that some winemakers let it go on far too long. It gets this big, too overly worked, overly big Chardonnay. These guys have just put it through for a touch, got a bit of that texture, used a touch of oak, but in a really good way, and just got a balanced wine that, like you said, brings you back to how Chardonnay used to taste when it was great. When before all the crap happened, and now we're back. We're back at this, and if we can get Chardonnay produced like that in Australia every day of the week, then we would be absolutely laughing. So I have a feeling I have mispriced that on the line on the website. So if anybody jumps on the site and wants to get that for really cheap, you're going to be getting it under cost, because I have a feeling I have.
I'm going to order some.
I reckon I have. Danny, you might have to come to my assistance here if I have. All right, that's wine number 3. We're getting some great comments. Chardonnay's beautiful. The whites keep getting better and better. Well done. Great Chardonnay, says Nathan. Great old school style Chardonnay, said Mark. I'd love to know the dollars. Simon Jordan, I just gave you two very different prices. I'll figure out which one it is. Elle might have a look on the website if you can. Can you have a look at the Central Club and see what we're up at?
It should be mentioned about the 2 Chardonnays that you have in the shop. The other Chardonnay that stocks is a really great Chardonnay for like a hot day in a barbecue. It's got everything you want about it, but the price point, it doesn't have the same, and it's just got a lot more of that fresh acidity. So it's my go-to every day, whereas this one is more of an occasion wine. So I can sit here with people like you, or sit down and really, really savor it. The other one I would call a sessionable, or what's the other word? A quaffable Chardonnay. This one is a little bit more serious.
I just got a notification from my website to say that I've sold out of Chardonnay. It's grand. The kids won't go to private school. It's fine. Don't worry about it, everybody. It's grand. If you've just managed to bag yourself a $60 Chardonnay for $30, good on you. I would have done the same. Happy days. All right. That was wine number 3. I think, like Lucas said, the wines got better and better. Someone said there's a red wine drinker. That's the Great Southern thing. God, that's 26. I just took the single price. Okay, cool. All right, we're on to the reds. Cool. Any more questions on the Chardonnay? I think the Chardonnay has definitely won the whites for sure. Pat Scanlon, are the kids in bed? Pat Scanlon, where is Pat? I can't see him. We're halfway. We're gonna have to up the tempo on the reds. But this is the point of the evening where we sing happy birthday to whoever. Have we any more birthdays? Caroline Gleason, are you in the house? Caroline Gleason's in the house. She is. All right. Pat Scallon's in the house as well. Pat, you're about to have 108 people sing happy birthday to you. Caroline, you're the same. This is the one point of the session where you can all unmute yourselves and take it away to Pat and to Caroline. Happy birthday. Unmute yourself. Come on.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Pip. Pip.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Get us all back on mute, Vinny.
Nice.
Okay, my mum turned 70 tonight. She's not on. She hates hearing happy birthday. Okay, cool. All right. Chardonnay was a ripper, I think. We're on to reds. When it comes to Western Australia, I love reds. I love red blends. And again, I wouldn't have dreamt of doing one of these without putting the blend in. We've got a Pinot to go through first. Megs, I'm going to unmute you. You're going to talk us through the Pinot. And then, Western Australia, generally, we had this conversation before the last time. Generally, you think it's hot, it's warm. How's it going to produce a Pinot? Pinot tends to grow better, survive better, not get as much of that rot that we've spoken about before in cooler climates. We're dealing with Western Australia, but we have cooler climates within the Western Australia wine region. That's something that it's probably the very reason we can grow Pinot down there. Is that right?
A real fire. It's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, that's a real fire. I'm not messing around in here.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Tell us about Pemberton. Tell us about the region.
Pemberton. Okay, so we do. The Pinot Noir that you've got in your glass comes from Pemberton. Now, Pemberton is technically outside of the Great Southern GI, our region, but it's iconic for its Pinot, and it's probably the place that people know for Pinot in WA. And to my point that I made earlier about how Singlefile really tries to produce and aims to produce the best quality wines that we can source the fruit from, this is a huge testament to why we do drop into Pemberton for some of that Sauvignon Blanc and the Fumé you tasted as from previous vintages, and this Pinot Noir. Very similar growing conditions to here in Denmark. We actually produce a very small piece of property here on this property where we've got a little bit of Pinot, and we produce a little bit of Pinot Meunier. You won't see the Pemberton soil profile there, but it's very similar to Denmark, and that's why we go to Pemberton. It's very cool climate, similar to Chardonnay, like Vinny said earlier. Pinot is the red variety.
Makes sense. Just stop you for a sec. This is the one that was mixed up on the tasting sheet. Number 4 is Pinot Noir. So on your bottle it should be number 4. On your wine tasting sheet it says number 5, but we're on wine number 4 now, the Pinot Noir. They're completely mixed up on the wine thing. Oh shit, yeah, it's definitely Pinot Noir. Number 4 is Pinot Noir, number 5. So the wine numbers are wrong, but the actual descriptions are right on your tasting sheet. Okay. So wine number 4, it's Pinot from Pemberton. Sorry, work away, Meg.
That's okay. It's actually really interesting being on the phone or on Zoom with a lot of people being in Melbourne, because for me personally, Victoria is a place that I hugely am attracted to for Pinot Noir. And I think to the reason of this one, it's got a lot of richness to it. We don't just look to make something quite light and cherry and fruit driven. This has some fruit behind it, but it's a lot more about that earthiness that comes with the wine and the spice that comes on the nose from the 8 months that it sees in oak barrels. And we try to achieve that bigger style, so it's got better cellaring longevity behind it. It's when this wine in particular is really young, it's great at Christmas. When we first release these Pinots, Christmas ham, Christmas duck, this Pinot is what you want with it, if not like a sparkling Shiraz with your ham. But Pinot, when it's really young, is vibrant and juicy with fruit, and this takes a bit more of a savoriness over time. Pinots, yeah, it's a bit of a characteristic fruit as well.
That we get in Victorian wines for sure, and you can see how that's going to age well and kind of go to more of that savory, for sure.
I couldn't really hear you. Yeah, so that's why we go to Pemberton for our Pinot Noir. It's a great area for Pinot, and when people think WA Pinot, there's a few wineries through that region that kind of they're ambassadors for a great Pinot in WA.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to pick up a lighter style of red, particularly like a Pinot from.
It's definitely a lighter red. Yep.
Now, just have a look at this. Have a look back at the little tasting technique I said. Pop your white sheet behind this one, and as we look at the reds, have a look at how the intensity changes. Pop 2 fingers behind your wine when you're looking through your wine glass. Pop your 2 fingers behind it. You'll see with this Pinot Noir, you can see your fingers pretty easily through it. So when you're looking at the intensity of a wine, if you can see your fingers behind the wine pretty easily, it's giving you an indication that it's a pretty light style of wine. You'd be able to pick a Pinot just by looking at it, or something like a Gamay. Then as you go up the ranks, look towards the Cabernet we're going to taste, you probably won't be able to see your fingers behind that, behind those wines. The other thing to look at, right, when you're looking at red wine in particular, and to look at the color, have a look at how, see there's a rim around this. If you're looking at this down towards a white background, there's a rim that comes around the edge of the wine. As a wine ages, that rim starts to lose its color. So if you wanted to be a complete wanker and you're in a nice restaurant, when we get to go back to restaurants, and somebody orders a nice kind of aged wine, it's almost like looking at a tree and looking at the rings on a tree. As that ring around the edge of the wine gets more faded and the color towards the middle starts to fade, you can tell that it's an older style of wine. And obviously then as you get those orange brick red colors, again, that shows you that your wine is either old or it's fucked. If you get an orange brick red brownie kind of color in your wine, it's probably corked. And by corked, I don't mean that pain in the ass thing where you break a cork halfway through and you get some cork in there. That's not what corked wine is. The technical term for that is pain in the ass. Corked wine is when oxygen has got into your wine and it's spoiled it, and it's basically made it brown and tastes like fortified wine. So you can see this is nice and bright. It's got a little bit of age coming on in this. It's going towards a bit of a garnet color, but it's definitely not brown, and it's full of life on the nose. So generally, Chardonnay drinkers turn into Pinot drinkers, because that's just how the world works. Of the Chardonnay drinkers, how's this in terms of our Pinot? Are we on red now, Christine? I'm behind. I'm not a red drinker. This is nice though. We're on red. We're on number 4, Christine, and it's the Pinot Noir. That's a cracker, says Andy. Very Darl Pinot. Mick McLean. Is that a WA term, Mick? Darl Pinot? Mick, enlighten us on the colloquialism there, because I know Mick is from Perth. Our bottles are black.
Did I say Darl?
Darl. He said it's
Darl?
Mick reckons it's a Darl Pinot. I don't know what that means. Anyway, Nicole.
Oh, no, it was dark.
Typo.
It was for the wine switch.
Well, that's what I was saying to Vinny. Whilst it is the Pinot variety is always going to be a lighter style, whether it's really savory and rich on the fruit, or whether it's really almost like cordial. This one we do try, because of that time in oak, we do try to achieve that bigger style, and we do want it to be a much darker style. So if we were to compare it to something you really like, it is, some people like drinking their Pinots cold. I don't recommend this with this one. I recommend cellaring this or finding the right food to pop with it.
That goes into the coriander debate. There's definitely half the population who'll do it and half the population who won't chill their Pinots. Most of the population who will come from Queensland. And then, those of us with a bit of decorum down in Victoria and Western Australia tend not to. Only joking. Okay, cool. Pinot Noir, I think that's awesome. I shit you not. My phone's red hot here. If that's all Chardonnay, you guys are in trouble. If I'm stuffed up on the Chardonnay price and everyone just bought Chardonnay, I'm in trouble. All right, that's a cool. I rarely would have thought WA for Pinot, but when you see a style like that, it's absolutely awesome. Okay, cool. We are now on to, just to clarify, we're on to wine number 5. Just check the bottom top, and this is the blend. This is what we call the Shiraz Mataro, Shiraz Grenache Mataro, which is the Clement number 5, I think they call it. Give us a bit of background on the name of this, Max. And ordinarily, in Australia, we see GSMs a lot, which is actually a Rhone blend. It goes back to the Rhone Valley in France. You see a lot of GSMs up in South Australia. GSM being Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre. The other word for Mourvedre is Mataro, or you can call it Monastrell, depending on where you're from. And then, obviously, if you mix around the blends, it becomes a Shiraz Grenache Mourvedre, or it becomes an MG. You rarely see mostly M in there. Ordinarily, you'll see mostly Grenache or mostly Shiraz. So these guys here have put together a blend which is Shiraz dominant. Is that right, Megs? What's the break?
Yeah, this particular vintage is Shiraz dominant, and so it's a technically speaking a SGM style. The GSM, just like a recipe, works in typically your Grenaches most, and then followed suit by the S and the M. This is more S, making Shiraz. The name, so like Vinny said, this variety originates back to the Rhone Valley. So in larger parts of the world, It's a Côte de Rhône or a Rhône blend from the Rhône Valley. Here in Australia, as we abbreviate everything, it's a GSM, and we break down the variety in it. I'm sure there's probably some sort of like legality thing, like champagne versus bubbles, or champagne and sparkling, but for us, it's a historical reference who was a pope in that region of France. And it allows us to play around with the ratios year in and year out. This in particular vintage, like Vinny said, is a Shiraz driven, so an SGM. But I think being cooler climate, because our Shirazes don't produce in that really spicy style, we don't typically heavily macerate them or force maceration. We let them gently macerate. We're able to still achieve that beautiful stewed plum fruit and those really beautiful aromatic spices. So on the nose, you might notice this really beautiful element of kind of cloves, nutmeg, those types of spices. And then on the palate, it carries through with this beautiful plum fruit. And over time, this wine is really fun to watch develop, typically in a really young, and this is just me being really honest, because this is the first wine I ever tried from Singlefile when I used to work in Perth. And it was Grenache driven then, but when this wine's really young, sometimes the Grenache or sometimes the Mataro can kick forward and unbalance the wine. So it takes a while. I say once it's in cellar door, it takes anywhere from 8 to 12 months to really find its feet. And once it's done that, we get this amazing, fantastic wine that's really great with things like Indian and Asian curries because of the aromatics and the spice to it. But because it's more medium bodied, it also cuts through those really rich gravies or heavily spiced, like hot spices, or something like a really rich lamb stew it can go well with. So it's a really beautiful wine to watch age and develop, because we will get a lot more texture with this wine in the years to come. And that fruit will become really stewy, and it's like, we get a lot of people who are like, it smells like Christmas, and it's a super flavorsome, fun wine that not a lot of people produce down here or through the region. But it's still medium bodied and light. So it's, yeah, one of my probably favorite wine, number 3 for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I only tasted this for the first time this week, and as soon as I tasted it, that's what I want. Like when you see a blend like this, if you see a straight GSM, it can be a core product for some people, some winemakers. When you see a vineyard, like a producer like yourselves, who've got, straight Cabernet, straight Chardonnay, straight Tempranillo, straight Riesling, and SSB gone a bit off chart. Then you see this pop up. And it just, to me, it looks, when I see something like that, I think this is the winemakers. This is a hobby. This is not going to pay the mortgage. This is not out there to pay the rent. But this is something that the winemaker wanted to do. And I often tell people as well, when you see a field blend, if it hasn't been a particularly shit vintage, then a field blend will probably be a sort of passion product for the winemaker. So always give it a crack, because it's something that they've wanted to do. The Riesling will always happen, the Chardonnay will always happen, the Cabernet will always happen. But when you see a blend like this and a quirky little name, just look out for those little things, because this is flown, for me, I think this is flown straight from the winemaker into the bottle to really give it something quirky. A couple of things just to take up on that you said there. And this is something we're still learning a bit. So when we talk about dominant grape varieties in the blend, so that obviously means that's got the most in it. It's if we deal with a GSM and we say Grenache, Shiraz, Mourvedre, you have to assume that there's more Grenache in there. In fact, there will always be more Grenache. One of the very few, if you compare it to Europe, one of the very few regulations that we have in terms of labeling here in Australia is that if you have a blend, the dominant grape variety has to come first. So the guys, if they were to put put the grape varieties on this, you guys have just called it a name. You would have to put Shiraz first on the label, Grenache, and then Mataro. And that's one of the few labels. So when we see an SSB, that can transfer between Sauvignon, or Sauvignon Blanc. So that's kind of one of the rules that we have in Australia. Have a look at the intensity of this. Have a look at put your fingers behind this, and it's a big difference between the Pinot. You can barely see your fingers behind it, but the way that you've managed to balance this, it's not a very heavy. It's definitely still sticking as a sort of medium-bodied wine. So, but you can see there's intensity there. This is our first kind of play around with tannin tonight. we're getting that grippy feeling on the side of our mouth. So give it a swirl, get it into your mouth. Remember, get that oxygen in like a complete winemaker, and feel where this wine hits your mouth. Feel where you get the action on this one, if you've any left. I know, Christine, you probably do because you were lagging behind. You're getting lots of encouragement, Christine, from the guys down in Hampton. I know Emily Basemore and Connor Duffy were getting you to scull your wine. Hurry up. Holly wants to know how long this wine would age for. I think because of the tannin structure on this, we would look at, I don't know, 8 to 12 years. You guys might give me a different indication. It's not a 15-year, but I reckon it might be an 8 to 10 year for sure. What do you think, Megs?
It's a funny question. If you were to ask some of the critics, they would give it 20, which I find outstanding. I can't imagine holding on to it. We recommend here, that kind of 12, 15 maybe. But, after about, I always say, especially with cooler climate, I think after 5, if you're into it, you'll continue to lay it down and you will be highly rewarded. But I also think that after 5, you waited long enough to see this wine really shine and to feel like rewarded for your work for laying it down.
Here's my handy hint on how to store wine longer than 5 years. Get a storage unit. Or a pub where you can put it and not have access to it, because it just doesn't work. I know some of the people in the group here actually might have some offside stuff. It's the only way to keep wine. It's the only way to do it. Keep it offside, because otherwise you'll have too many reds one night. Actually, no, we'll do. And all of a sudden 5 bottles are gone. So that's my little handy hint. Store it offside. There's plenty of places you can do it. Okay, Nicole wants to know, was 2017 one of the best years for red wine in Australia? My dad is asking for a friend, Nicole. Of course you are. Don't blame me for this. I don't know. Was 17? It's funny. You tend to know the particularly bad years. They tend to get kind of talked about more. I don't know. Do you guys have anything to offer there, Megs or Patrick? Was it a particularly good year for you guys, 17?
For us, it was more 18 was exceptional. We always seem to get the quality and the fruit. It ends up being about the yield for us in many ways. So 18 was exceptional. 19, we saw early frost in some areas through Franklin and over to Margs. Not that we source anything from there, but I know that a lot of them had a lot wiped out. They still had great quality for what they had there, but a lot of it did get wiped out for some vineyards, which is really unfortunate. But 14 was an exceptional vintage where our Chardonnay really thrived. But yeah, it's just 17 specifically. I think that's the year I got a job here, so I can't speak to that vintage in particular. But yeah, we normally see the quality. It just ends up being about yield more than anything for us.
We've got a lot of people asking about age and about how long it can last. So it's very much, the only way to really see how a wine ages well is to buy a dozen, and that, and I'm not saying that buy it for me, and to go back and look at it every year. But so it is hard to tell. What you can do when you drink it now, you look at a couple of things like the tannin and the fruit that's there, and that'll give you an indication as to how it will go. Sally and Peter have a question. Really good question, actually. Question for blend. Does the blending happen before or after fermentation? I would say, as a rule of thumb, it happens after. Generally, the wines are fermented and made in their own right, and then they're blended after the fact. It'd be rare. There is some co-fermenting that goes on with Shiraz in particular, and it can often be co-fermented with Viognier, which is actually a white grape variety. I would say in this instance, they're all fermented separately and they're blended on the bench. Is that right?
Yeah. We normally you don't start looking at sometimes it might come down to quantity on hand, but you might not actually start looking at that blend until things are starting to getting closer to that bottling point. For us, when we look at blending, so we only have a few wines that are blended. I'm not sure where you guys have tasted before, but I guess one of the nice things about Singlefile, and back to that point about really quality, is that our single site varieties are not blended with anything. I'm sure, Vinny, you maybe touched on the legalities of what has to be listed on the label versus what doesn't have to be listed on percentage and ratio wise. But for us, our single varieties, like the Cabernet and the Pinot that we've tasted and will taste, are 100% of that style. It's the blends that are obviously can vary year to year. But yeah, the blending definitely doesn't happen until almost the last thing.
Almost bottling. There are some Shiraz Viognier would be the co-fermented one that you'd see a lot.
Yeah.
But the other alternative then, back to that question, Sally and Peter, is what we call a field blend. And a field blend, which we've tasted in some of these sessions before, a field blend is when you grow grapes together, you pick them on the very same day, and you co-ferment them in one batch. And you basically just fucking hope for the best. Whereas when you blend like this, you've actually got control, because the wine at the end of it, like Meg said there, it's about to be bottled. You've made a wine that in its own right is fine, or it's good, and then you're blending it into something else. So you could actually produce a single varietal of that wine. You've got much more control over doing it this way. Whereas if you put a whole heap of different varieties into a tank or into a barrel, you're literally hoping for the best. Which is why I often say, give field blends a crack if you see them on the list, because often they are a bit of luck. They are a winemaker's kind of hobby, and they can turn out really cool. Some of them turn out shit, but generally they don't tend to cost too much, because like I said, they're not made to pay the mortgage. They're made as a bit of a side thing, and it's a bit of a hobby.
That's another good point about blends too. I think, you asked before about the name, or, you look at the Fumé Blanc and why we decided to name that. And I think normally your blends, if it's like a table variety where it could be a field blend, it might also come at a much significant less price point as well. And might be more for today. It's, today drinking. It's not a cellaring thing. It's not so much consumed for flavor profile rather than just having a glass of red. And the name Clement for us again creates this beautiful story about where the wine originates and how we're able to achieve that same quality over here in such a far way, like super far away from where it originates.
So David Linley and Fred are giving us a very subtle hint that we need to get on to the last wine. They just plunked their very empty wine glasses right in front of the screen to tell us we're dry, we need more wine. All right, I think that's a ripper. I love that wine. It's getting some really good comments in the chat. There's a bit of banter on the chat there as well that I won't get into. We're on to Cabernet. We are on a draw. We want to make Cabernet sexy again. Pinot has taken over, Gamay has taken over, natural wines, pet nats, they're all the rage. Give Cabernet a crack. Let's make Cabernet great again. We're going to get t-shirts made, I swear, one day. And this, when you think about Western Australia, Cabernet is one of those grape varieties that just shines. Obviously has a home back in Bordeaux in France. And it is up the top, when it comes to weight, intensity, it is a heavier style of red. It's not going to suit absolutely every occasion, but there are plenty of occasions that it will suit. Give it a good glug in the glass. Now have a look through, try and see your fingers through this one. It's pretty deep and intense. This is 2017 as well. And then look at what I told you about the rim. Have a look at the rim and have a look at how it fades. Even a wine that's 3 years old, it should start to show signs of, fading color. This doesn't. This has got its color all the way to the rim. So this will give you an indication that it's very young, even though it's 3 years old. It's in its infancy. And if you ask about aging, talking about Cabernets and aging, this is something you could leave in your will. That's how long you can leave it. I haven't even put this near my mouth yet, but I can tell by looking at it, it's going to be deep and dark and intense. So give Cabernet a crack again. Give it a good swirl. Cabernet can have this really distinct pepperiness on its nose. It's also a grape that is really susceptible to, sucking in anything that's in the area into the grape itself, And then if there's any sort of eucalyptus anywhere near Cabernet, it just seems to just ooze into the grape. You can often get this little bit of peppermint coming through, which is eucalyptus coming through on the wine. There's a touch of it here. It wouldn't be like the likes of, say, Coonawarra, or I've had some ACT wines that are just almost like toothpaste. But there's a little hint of it here. There's a hint of spice here as well. Which again, I reckon comes from, I've got notes here, but I reckon it comes from a small bit of oak barrique, new oak barrique treatment as well. A little bit. Say again, Max?
Barrels, not barriques this time.
Oh, barrels, so bigger. So we're looking at a bit bigger. Take us through this. Take us through why we should be drinking Cabernet again. Let's get on the train.
So, I get a really strong anisey licorice element on the nose. When I open, because we're on the 18 here in the cellar door, So when I saw this lasagna, I was so excited to try it because it's a little bit older and it's got that real richness and depth to it. I get that kind of peppermint in the, you know, if you take a really long inhalation, but it's got this beautiful aniseed or licorice to me. Just really quickly, the reds, so the Clement and the Cabernet that you guys have tasted tonight, these all come from Franklin River, the sub-region, which is about an hour and a half north of us here. We're about 150 kilometers away from there. And it's a really great area for growing our reds. They are substantially warmer up there, more so when we're looking at the evening temperatures. And so it's a really great place to grow our reds and to source that fruit up there, because we're just going to be able to achieve that richer style. If we grew it here, and if you taste any reds that come from Denmark that aren't Pinot, they're really kind of front palate and then they're nothing. And what we want is this wine to last and linger on the palate. Cabernets are meant to be really beautiful food wines and cellaring options, and this just carries you through with tannin, black currant. There's a bit of that beautiful cassis that you expect from a Cabernet, but it just has really, this still has a lot of, you know, if we want to go back to cellaring, this has 15, 20 years behind it. I don't necessarily recommend taking it to 20 from a livelihood standpoint. We are living in a generation of now, given everything going on. So it's it's such a beautiful drop that I haven't had in ages, so it's really exciting to try it tonight. But yeah, Franklin River for us, those evening temperatures just stay a little bit more ambient than what we see down here in Denmark. We drop really cold in Denmark, even in summer. Plus we get really hot days. Those evenings can really drop off. So it's important that we source Cabernet, Shiraz, Grenache from elsewhere, Merlot from elsewhere.
Yeah, you sort of mentioned tannin there, and I would have expected, having looked at the wine and knowing it's Cabernet, I was expecting a lot more tannin. It actually feels a bit more tannin in the blend than there is in this. This is just soft. This has just got this silkiness. It's got tannin there, but it's not overpowering. And the more I put my nose into the glass, I'm getting chocolate as well. I'm not like, you know, that's and shit. I'm getting dairy milk. You know, I'm getting, you know, lovely creamy chocolate. It's beautiful.
It's what was I gonna say? I guess because our wines are all because we're cooler climate, we deal, obviously, if you compare a Cabernet to a Cabernet from a warmer climate, or where they're, you know, historically known to come from, whether it's Margs, Coonawarra, those tannins are going to be a lot more upfront, whereas we are in a really fortunate position where, because we're slightly more cool climate and people are wanting to drink their wine sooner, there's still a lot of people who are into cellaring for a long time. You can drink this wine a lot quicker and not necessarily have to hold on to it. So it doesn't require the commitment to get it ready.
No, 100%, and that's kind of, you know, that's the golden, you know, if you can get that right, where you can produce a wine you can drink now, and you don't have to wait 15 years. That nobody seems in the comments seems to be able to wait, and I'm the same. I can't hold on to wine unless it's like far away. So to be able to produce a wine you can drink now, but is going to get better. We talk about science behind wine. That is a science. Like trying to get a wine that can taste well now, drink really well now, not be overpowering, but then in 15 years' time, this will actually be better. You know, it will get better. I mean, I think that's a great one. I have priced this correctly on the website, and now I have. That hangs around the $60 mark. Don't tell me this is a $120 mark wine, Meg. You guys sell it for 60?
No. But see, Vinny, the weird thing about you, because you're also a restaurant, but you're working as a bottle shop now, your prices would be different depending on what you're doing. This retails for about 40.
Oh, that's good, because if anyone's bought this, it'll make up for the losses I just made in the Chardonnay. So, I might have priced this at 35, maybe.
To be fair, I don't know what you were buying it for. That's just what we retail it at. You know, you might.
Danny looks after me. I was in the pub at 5:30 this morning getting this stuff ready. So I might not be right on my prices, but yeah, I thought you guys were about 60. Anyhow, I think it's worth, you know, that to me, you know, is a 75, 80 for sure. Yeah.
Bargain.
Any questions? Given all these comments, you should probably extend these tastings from 6 to 12 wines, Vinny. Who's saying that? Dion Brogan wants to have 12 wines. Do you reckon we can get some 12? We'd be here till midnight, Dion, if we were to do that.
Someone earlier asked about the Tempranillo. Did you send out some Tempranillo as well?
So what we did was, there's 3, great, thanks for the question, great question from the floor. These sessions you can get in 3 ways. There's the tasting packs that we're doing that are just straight samples, but people can also buy a pack that's got a few beers for before and a bottle of wine to have afterwards. And the bottle of wine that we included this time was the Tempranillo, just because it was nice and rare. I thought.
What vintage?
2019.
Tammy Ryan will tell us that. Can I see that again from Sean and Tammy? It was something.
Tempranillo was 2019.
Oh, that's. I'm getting old, Tammy. I'm nearly 40. Are they? Their notes. Can't read it. Tammy, come off and tell us what it is.
It's your to-do list, Vinny. It's a to-do list. We made a to-do list for you while you've been talking. You want to hear it?
Okay. Can you take a photograph and send it to me?
Yeah, we want to make sure that you learn how to pronounce wine wanker properly. We don't make comments about marketeers. Make sure you put the whiskey tasting on the website so that we can book it.
It's there.
We can't find it, this marketeer. And then don't drink while numbering, please. So make sure your samples are numbered 4 and 5, not 5 and 4.
Oh, Jesus.
And then you need to learn how to pronounce the word fuck. It's actually fect in Irish.
I like it. Real-time feedback. Nothing like it. The tasting packs should be up. The whiskey tasting packs up in the same area as the regular tasting packs. I'll definitely start saying feck instead of fucked, for sure. I'll definitely take that on board. I was wondering what Sean was doing. I thought he was taking a portrait. I thought he was writing something. Anyway, give me a photograph of that, will you? And I'll definitely take note. And I'm only joking about marketing. I just think the back label can often be full of crap. That you're better off just kind of figuring out what you can from the front label and take the back label with a picture. So I won't talk about sommeliers because if I do, I'll be here till 10 o'clock. But I might get myself in trouble. This Cabernet is awesome, regardless of what price it is. On our side.
It'll be around 40, Vinny, by the looks of things.
Okay, cool. We're right. We're grand. Thanks everyone for buying the Chardonnay. It was awesome. So everyone's going to be drinking $60 Chardonnay for $30. I hope you can come to the party there, Danny, and help us in that regard. Anybody got any more questions for Megs on the wines? The cab is opening up nicely. The cab will open up even more. I reckon I'll keep a glass of that for tomorrow. If you can try, you're drinking 100 mils here. Cabernet is one of those things that 2 or 3 days later can soften up and absolutely,
Yeah, Vinny, just wanted to say about the Franklin River, mate. It's a real area that people should look for if they are Cabernet fans. A lot of really good Cabernet comes out of there. A lot better than some of the stuff in Margaret River. They don't pay me to say that; it's just the truth. Seriously, lovely Cabernet from Franklin River. So if you see it on a bottle, give it a slurp.
Actually, slowly seeing a lot of Margaret River producers starting to creep over there to whether they're attaining single site Cabernets from over there or just parcels of fruit to blend with. So it is definitely so just for anyone who does travel here, there's not many cellar doors through there, but if you're in your local bottle shop or shopping online, it's a great place to look to buy them. But maybe not so much to travel through if you're looking for a lot of cellar door options. But yeah, they definitely, the Cabernet is sensational. And the Shiraz.
Yeah, no, I think that this is part of these kind of sessions to open up new things, open up new areas. We probably all tasted Cabernet, Shiraz, Sauvignon Blanc, SSBs before, but not many. I don't think anybody would be reaching for Great Southern in every visit that they make to the bottle shop. So give it a crack. Riesling is one of the sort of stalwarts of the region as well, but I think I've used it enough. I've kind of covered it enough to. I think the wines we had tonight showed a bit more of the area, and I think it's worked out. I think it's been a really good tasting. Any more, if I do say so myself, any more questions? Good enough, really, for going on a limb to do this. Yeah, no, I've enjoyed tonight. There must be some serious chat going on to my left here because my wife Eleanor just keeps breaking her shit laughing at comments that are going on. So I can't wait to figure out what's been going on the WhatsApp chats. But yeah, if you are interested, all the wines are available on the site. The prices are probably fecked, as I have to say now, Tammy. So grab them while you can. You'll either be completely ripped off or you'll be getting a bargain. So I guess if you buy a lot, then you'll probably be somewhere in between. I can see Baby Rose is in the shop now. Good on you, lads. No more happy birthday. When is the whiskey tasting? Great question, Nicole. Great question, Nicole. Whiskey tasting is on September 6th, which is Father's Day. It's at 5 o'clock. I'm up to about 68 sessions, and I'm a bit wary about getting past the 100 mark. So if I get more than 100, I'll have to do 2 sessions. I'll do 5 p.m. and probably do 6:30 or 7. So jump on. It should be in the same section as the wine tastings. So if you go, so where you go and get the wine packs, it should be in there. If not, just shoot me a message or something anywhere, and I'll send you the link for sure. But yeah, it should be good. That's a good session actually. And you get to hear me talk about Irish whiskey and Irish history and stuff like that as well. So if you think tonight was a bit, if the F-bombs dropped tonight, when I'm talking about how the English taxed the Irish whiskey so they couldn't make any more, wait till you hear me fucking drop some more F-bombs. Anyway, I might even put some background music on that one as well. Yeah, and it won't be Westlife, put it that way. Cool, all right. Any more questions for Megs? Megs, thanks a million for this. It's awesome.
Thanks for me. It's really nice to meet everyone and be able to share what we do over here with you guys.
Can't wait to have a Cabernet around that table there when we get down there. I got an Irish wife here. So Mark Dobbs has got an Irish wife here who's loving your attitude. Oh, it gets better with whiskey, Mark. Don't you worry about that. Thanks again to Danny Ryan for organising these sessions as well. It's awesome. Julesy and I know Tim is still out on the road because he was delivering. Julesy and Sam. Chloe's not with us tonight because she's studying. But yeah, it takes a lot to get all the wines out. Like we want these wines to show as best as they can. So we probably could bottle these wines on Tuesday and send them out, but we want to make sure these wines show exactly as they would in the cellar door. And to do that, it takes a lot. So it takes a lot of busting ass. So Julesy and Tim and Sam and Chloe know exactly what it's about. So thanks for that. It's awesome. Looks like everyone enjoyed the wines. I think they have been great. So we'll all get over to Western Australia soon. I'm going to go and have a beer. Jess, are you still with us? Jess and Luca? My father is not here to sing us out. And I think Jess had held the residency for a while, but I don't know. They might have dropped off. Have they dropped off just at the end? They have. Those who are new to this, we normally have someone sing us out. Usually my dad sings an Irish ballad of some sort. But I know Luca and Jess were in, but they might have just dropped off. Oh, look at that. They've gone just before. All right, we haven't got a song to sing us out. So
go on, Vinny. Sing us a song, Vinny. Come on, Vinny.
No. I might do it on the last session. I might. But Caroline Gleason could sing us a song for sure. But yeah, no, keep an eye. There'll be more tastings. There's a gin tasting coming up, which I'll put up on online soon. The tasting packs for next week are up already. I can see some people have ordered that as well. So jump on. The first 50 are at that. Just pay postage price, and then the rest go up to the regular price. So jump on if you can and get hooked in for next week. My apologies to all the marketeers that might have taken offense. I'm gonna have to go and write a few emails now. But if there's nothing else, if no one else wants to sing, then
Christine will sing.
Christine is going to sing. Christine, what are you going to sing, Christine?
Come on.
No.
It's gonna fire up some Adele.
Adele.
Run in the deep. I have my heart inside. There you go.
Chris.
Perfect.
No one else will give it a crack. All right, we'll see if we can get one of our resident singers back for next week. Any birthdays next Thursday? Watch out. Oh, no one's putting their hand up. No one's brave enough. All right, 9:30. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Danny, Ryan. Thanks again, Julesy, Sam.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey guys, thanks for coming in.
Cheers.